We've for a long time have heard of this concept of lifelong learning, and I think we all intuitively grasp that we will somehow have to become lifelong learners, but there doesn't actually seem to be an infrastructure set up for us to, take these seamless on and off ramps in and out of learning and work. And when we think about the fact that our lifespans are actually extending, our work lives are extending, and the jobs that we can look forward to in the future are jobs that we can't even name today. In 2014, we could already see that the top jobs that were posted and identified on LinkedIn were jobs that didn't exist 5 years prior. Those were jobs like, cloud architect or cloud manager or iOS or Android developer or UI UX designer or big data architect or social media intern. Those were some of the hottest jobs out there, and we would never have been able to identify them 5 years prior to that point. So how many more jobs like those can we anticipate in a longer, more turbulent work life? If you think about today and the kind of infrastructure that we have, we don't have a lot of interstitial tissue between a lot of the existing solutions and systems out there. So even as we think about like our K-12 system, our post-secondary system, our workforce training infrastructure, they're out there, but they're kind of working in parallel with one another. There's not this kind of connective tissue. They don't really speak languages that translate well. So as we think about the future, it's not that we have to sort of start from scratch, but we have to think about designing a new learning ecosystem that better connects different things like career navigation, helping us understand the skills gaps that we have to fill, wraparound support services, getting us in touch with the right kinds of advisors or coaches that can kind of help guide us in the right direction, or just connect us to the right services that we need to stay accountable and persistent in our learning pathways. We need those learning experiences also to be integrated in the workday. It's not always something that we add on to everything else going on in our lives. So how can we get to more integrated earning and learning? And also, how do we get to more transparent and fair hiring practices? Even just prior to the pandemic, we actually had over 41 million Americans who were not thriving in today's labor market. These were people with a high school degree. They didn't have a whole lot of post-secondary experience, maybe none. They were not earning a living wage. And so these were people who were stuck. The fascinating and kind of just totally calamitous impact of COVID was that we saw how much inertia and stuckness there was in our workforce and education infrastructure, that we had no mechanism, we had no way to shift large numbers of people to jobs in demand. So we saw what happened when industries like retail and hospitality and food services were decimated. If we had a better functioning education and training workforce infrastructure, we would have been able to identify really the kinds of transferable and portable skills that people in, the hotel industry had, that they could actually leverage and port over to something that was seemingly unrelated. I think there's been a lot of effort to sort of identify who's responsible, but really what this bears out is that the onus is on every stakeholder in this ecosystem. It's not just higher education's fault. It's not just employers' fault. There has been this kind of disconnect for quite some time where, educators and college, faculty believe that they're preparing learners well for the workforce, but business leaders disagree. There's this real kind of often cited Gallup survey where 96% of higher education leaders thought they were preparing their learners well for the workforce, and only 11% of business leaders actually agreed. So that disconnect has been there for many, many years. That survey is actually quite old. And what's happened is higher ed has sort of said, no, that's the province, workforce training is the province of employers. Employers, on the other hand, have long retreated over the last few decades from skilling up their existing workforce. So what we've had is just this huge void. And then meanwhile, who bears the brunt of this? It's all of us as job seekers, where all the risk we are bearing, right? The financial risk of upskilling, the loss of jobs, everything is on us to figure out and navigate on our own. And that really needs to shift in this new ecosystem structure where more stakeholders have actually more skin in the game here.